more money is being spent on social media and social marketing. I believe it's worthwhile. All of you believe it's worthwhile, or you wouldn't be here joining us for the webinar. But how do we ensure that we're getting our money's worth? I don't know about you, but very few people these days do have spare cash to burn in their marketing budget. So one of the key things that we see is making sure that your social investment pays off, and it is likely not going to pay off if you're not dotting the I's and crossing the T's and getting the other 80% of the value you can by integrating the search. So just to tick off some of the social media gurus here in the webinar with us, Forrester just released a brand new report in the last several days called The Purchase Path of Online Buyers in 2012. Fairly e-commerce focused. So I'm going to put that out there as a caveat, and things can be different in a considered sales process and purchase decision cycle, but they have a lot of statistical significance here. They did a heavy-duty deep dive analyzing the conversion paths on 77,000 orders. And looking at those orders, what they found out is fewer than 1%. Fewer than 1% of all the transactions could be traced to social links. And now, in defense of social, sometimes people do a direct nav or direct type in, or they go think about it for a while, and then they'll go to Google and they'll come in on an AdWord or something like that. But in terms of looking for multi-touch attribution points, so it wasn't just a one click. They were looking at all the ways they could find a connection. And fewer than 1% had a social link anywhere in that in a multi-touch path even. So that's kind of distressing for the social folks. The top performing sources, direct visits, organic search, and paid search. And then email was about 7 or 8% after that. So in terms of new sales, social currently is not driving a whole bunch. Now, I understand social is really where the big ROI is on the repeat sales, right? Turning the people into brand advocates and then coming back and doing rebuy behavior. Well, unfortunately, the Forrester report looked at that as well, and the data there indicated that for repeat customers, if it was just one touch point, direct visits and email were the winners, and then organic and paid in aggregate came up to almost as much as email. If it was a multi-touch point in terms of the second buy or the repeat buy, email and display came out on top, or display combined with other things, then search, and the distressing thing here down at the bottom, social. So social as a standalone is going to come under some very tough scrutiny down the road by the financial bean counters. So my counsel is prepare yourself for that. In a nutshell, if you're looking at things in a somewhat isolated fashion, and this is even looking at multi-touch attribution, so it wasn't entirely isolated, but search matters most for new customers. Email is your repeat winner, and measured in isolation, social tactics are not meaningful sales drivers. And I know that you're going to have a whole bunch of folks just tearing their hair out and screaming here. This is not what the social media world wants to hear. It's not always lost, though. The good news is there is a recovery path. And I will talk about I got a question in, will we talk about some metrics that are far more B2B associated, and in fact, we will. Let's remember that none of these things works best all by itself. The higher dollar value of our purchase, the longer the sales cycle, the more people who are involved in it, or the more likely we are to be selling a product that has repeat and rebuy behavior. Integrated marketing works best. The more arrows you have in your marketing quiver, the better it's going to perform. So try not to have social as a standalone. And we're going to get into where that can be challenging as well, because in a lot of cases it doesn't talk to the other folks. The thing to keep in mind with socials, in many cases, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, a lot of the social things are very, very top of funnel, are still kind of building awareness. As people go further down funnel, you start looking at the search engines, and then it either goes into a CRM system or for rebuy behavior, an eCRM system like email, and that's where a lot of the stroking for the rebuy behavior comes in. So all of this works best when it's integrated as part of the system. And social has a deep role to play in that system, but it needs to fit in and talk to the other things and communicate with them, because at the end of the day, most of you, maybe some of you will, but most of you aren't going to get promoted to be chief marketing officer based on likes or forms. Another thought out there, and here's where social actually can really shine. A lot of us are too attached to our website. Social can make a lot of very interesting things occur off website. And so we're big fans of what social can do for you on the off page. Search needs social. Search needs social. It already is social. More and more when you go to Google and you do a search on a person, on a company, on a historical event, you'll find a whole bunch of social things. Over on the right-hand side, over here on the left-hand side, Danny Sullivan's one of the guys, good guy in our industry. He's been doing a lot in search for ages. You go do a search for his name. It pulls up his author profile on search engine land, but it also talks about how many Google Plus circles he's in. Further down, it has more social indicators. Over on the right-hand side, it pulls up the Wikipedia listing. It pulls up his latest real-time post 32 minutes ago on Google Plus. It also talks about related searches and related people. So things that you might previously find on a Facebook or LinkedIn. People who search for this person also look for this person. Now it's pulling up to the front page of Google in the search results. So Google is already social. And the social signals from Google Plus and others are already driving rankings. Google is already social because I could be logged in, which I am here, or not logged in, and I get different results based on who Google thinks I am. I could be sitting next to somebody and have very different search results for a phrase than the other person gets. So social has already infused search. It's also infusing search from the sense of reputation management. There is a whole industry out there, a pretty good-sized industry of equipment leasing. Here's a case of a company that does equipment leasing, and as you can tell, that there have been at the very bottom some people who've been less than happy with their equipment, and the Yelp reviews here are probably not the kind that would give you confidence. So social is already infusing search. We had a client that at one point was provably losing tens of millions of dollars a month from their sales profile because at one point the Attorney General of the state of New York had sued them. And so you search for their company name, and this is a fairly major purchase. People were writing six-figure checks and up to this company. And after all the work had been done on the sales funnel and the sales pipeline and down at the very bottom and about ready to write the check, it went to the check signatory at the prospective client. They went and did a search, and the number 2 listing after the company name was sued by state of New York for fraud. And we cleaned that up for them and, got that down to page 5 of Google and all that kind of good stuff. But it was a combination of search and social. They work best when they work in tandem. Google is driving more and more of the off-page voting, which drives Google rankings based on social signals. Now, there are some challenges here. There are 3 main types of challenges. One are the different mindsets between social gurus and search gurus. Second is training and education, and the third is actually even more pernicious. It's structural. Let's talk a little bit about each of these. And Stephanie asked us a question: how long is the presentation? We're going to get you out of here before 1, so I'm going to blow through a lot of these things fairly fast. On the different mindsets problem, I liken a lot of search marketers to very transactional creatures. They're sort of the e-com and affiliate folks of the online world. And They're coming out there with their farms of outsourced folks going, will you link to me? Will you link to me? Hey, how about we swap links? And it just kind of has a dirty feeling to it. On the other side of the fence, the social media gurus have fascinating conversations and chitter chatter and talk, and it's just a lot of fun, but they never get around to sort of asking for it and going to the next stage. I used to liken it to sort of the two opposites of nightlife, where you'd kind of have the seedy people at a bar, kind of with pickup lines and cheese monkey stuff, and the search marketers far too often are that way when it comes to, will you link to me? And not showing a lot of, foresight or preparation before they approach a person at the bar or website. It's like they have the same line with everybody, and they didn't spend any time by figuring out who you are and what's important to you and where you want to go and, who are you as a person. The social media experts are the far other extreme of there, where they'll sit and have a fascinating conversation. It'll be wonderful, and 4 hours later, it's closing time, and they say, thank you, that was great, bye-bye, and they don't even exchange a phone number, and it's over. And so the right answer is kind of somewhere in between. You want to build a relationship, but you also want to be able to continue building that relationship and always be thinking, what's the next stage in deepening the relationship? And so there's a mindset difference between too many of the search marketing professionals and too many of the social media professionals. And I think at some point there's actually some really good fodder out here about what the social media gurus need to unlearn to be useful in search. And I can address that some in the Q&A as well, and what some of the search gurus need to learn in order to be useful in social. The second challenge is really training and education. A lot of the folks in search, if they're just focused on getting the link, don't really know how to have a conversation. They don't really know how to build a relationship, and don't necessarily know how to choose who to build that relationship with. A lot of the folks in social, a lot of them think they're SEO experts because once upon a time they ranked for a keyword nobody searches for all of one day on Google. Or they ranked for a keyword that doesn't matter because it's not important to their client. So, the training and education and discipline, the kinds of things we did back in the day when we trained all the journalists at public broadcasting system, how to actually write for Google. Write for users, but also write for Google. That kind of training is really important to a lot of the folks doing social media. So there's a cross-training challenge here in terms of working search and social together. And the third major area of challenge is structural. And that structural is both internal and external. Internally, the structural challenge is social often comes out of a very different budget than search. Search sometimes comes out of different budgets in and of itself. Sometimes SEO is owned by corporate marketing and paid search is owned by field marketing. A lot of times social is owned by the same folks who own the PR budget, or it's a separate budget, or sometimes it's run out of customer service. So the budget dollars can vary, the people can vary, they can report to different areas. A lot of times they don't talk to each other, and they're running things in a non-integrated fashion. On the outsourced or agency side, we've got another huge structural challenge in that most work out there in the online space seems to be done either by ad agencies or PR firms. And ad agencies, they're creative. They understand content creation, and they want you to pay them a lot of money so they can build you stuff you own. They understand owned media and paid media, but they don't really understand social, except insofar as they want to build you a Facebook app. It's all about how do they build their time to build you something. The PR firms, on the other hand, oftentimes understand the earned media, getting an article placement or having a conversation with a high-profile blogger. But once they get that win, again, they don't ask for the phone number. They don't know how to go to the next step, and they don't know how to prolong that win and make it last. So there are some systemic issues we have here. All those could be overcome, but not without a fair amount of commitment and effort. A few basics to making your social work for search. One, content. It is a pain in the rear to create content. Maybe you've got a great user-generated content machine going, but if not, make sure the content you generate gets used multiple times. Instead of reading, writing, and arithmetic, think about recycling your content, repurposing your content, and making your content rich media. I don't have a lot of rich media on this, thank goodness, because I think I would have taken down the entire IBM cloud, since it didn't seem to be able to upload a few not terribly graphic-heavy PowerPoint slides. But think in terms of rich media. A video is phenomenal these days. YouTube, according to some measures, gets more done on social than Facebook, Pinterest, or others still. Now, a lot of it's because the stuff's hosted there and people embed it from social networks, but YouTube is just phenomenal in what it can do for you. And a lot of times, you tag things properly, you will get those videos found for very important searches. In ways that might have taken you years to achieve in classic SEO. But with video SEO, you can get to the front of the line. And you can tell a story. You can tell a much better story in video than you ever could with text or a few pictures. Repurpose. Think through, well, if I'm going to do a couple tweets a day, probably 80% of my blog posts should be drawn from those tweets. I mean, if you will come in out of left field and be great blog posts, use your Twitter calendar to drive the editorial calendar of your blog. If you're blogging, use your blog calendar to drive your white paper and article creation. If you are presenting, use your presentations to come up with videos and webinars. Repurpose what you have, recycle what you have. Go look in your dustbin of content. Find out what did you do beforehand that you can now reuse and refresh. Does your sales team make presentations? Does your executive speak? That PowerPoint should be on SlideShare. That PowerPoint with a voiceover is now a video and should be on YouTube. Get found on what matters. Let's go to number 2 here. This is a basic of optimizing social for search that most people are still not doing. Where do you want to get found? Does your social team understand your SEO strategy? Does your social team know the keywords you're working on? Do they know what to do with those keywords? We've had some folks in the office today who've got a phenomenal product in the metal art space. It's wind art, it's copper, it's beautiful. They actually had generated a bunch of great videos, all of which were optimized to rank for the company name that nobody searches for. They hadn't thought through any keyword research. They didn't know about keyword research. Most ad agencies, most video creation shops know nothing about keyword research. Who matters to you? Who are the personas? Who are you trying to reach? Does your social team understand the personas that your web team has spent the money and time developing? That your product marketing people have figured out? Has that infused your social team, or are they chattering to the wrong people? You know, if they're having these great conversations, and make sure they're having them with the right people, because otherwise social is just a cost center, and not even a cost center headed toward a revenue center. It's just a cost center twirling around in a Baroque and Rococo fashion that will never get it done. Another basic here: where to share, how to share, and I might add to that, when to share. And Aubrey, if you can chime in, feel free to do this on this. But every single social network has different times to post when you're most likely to get found. Blog posts at some times of day or in some days of week are more likely to get picked up. How best to share? Are you going to share everything the same way, or to identify some things that are worthy of enhanced and special treatment? Go ahead and see if you have.
Yeah, blog posts, typically research has shown that blog posts, for whatever reason, that are written on Fridays and posted on Fridays tend to actually get more shares via Twitter than blog posts that are posted on any other day of the week. I mean, for us, it seems to work a little bit different. Our primary days seem to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But an overwhelming majority of bloggers have found that Fridays for them seem to be key, which I think to most marketers seems a little counterintuitive, because it's like, why would you post something important on a Friday whenever everybody's mind is already on what they're doing for the weekend? But apparently that Friday is whenever everybody is reading all of those blogs, and tweeting because the fact that they've also checked out for the week. So I'm guessing there's a little bit of that whole Friday thing going on there where people are like, oh, let's just share content. So that's going to be the best for blogs. And Pinterest, it seems to get a lot of traction on weekends. I mean, I know that's whenever I'm on it the most, but it seems to me that's whenever marketers would want to post their stuff on Pinterest is whenever their core audience is actually using it.
Number 4 here, leaning into larger networks. Very few of us have all the network we ever want to have or all the Google rankings that we want to have. So this is being purposeful about figuring out who else is in the ecosystem that you want to attract. And how do you engage them with social in a way that helps, that it increases the odds of a link back to you? So pure social that doesn't think of search is really just chitter-chattering with folks, and it's like seeing the person at the bar and saying, my, they look hunky, I want to go talk to that person. If you actually do a little bit more research, you want to look at the person and say, hey, there are 2 hunky people at the bar, but that particular one actually has a whole other network they bring with them as well. That's a more important one to talk to. Depending on how you mention someone and how you engage someone in social, they may actually mention you on their blog or link back to you. Someone who has an active blog is actually more, in addition to a Twitter presence, is more interesting, all things being considered, than someone who just tweets. Sometimes a blog is actually more useful. They have a bunch of Twitter followers, but they don't tweet a lot, but they blog a lot. That might actually be much more important than someone who tweets frequently from a search perspective, because you have an opportunity to build a relationship there with social and get link backs from the blog. And since they're blogging, very few people become thought leaders on the basis of the character limitation that you're allowed in Twitter. It tends to be a force multiplier and a projector of ideas that are created and then can then be disseminated and shared. But if someone has a credible thought leadership platform, could be a blog, could be their main website, they could be a journalist, those folks are more interesting from an SEO perspective to lean into the networks. And a couple other basics here. YouTube, again, we talked about video. It is, according to many, now the second largest search engine, larger than Bing. More and more people are going to YouTube. Optimizing for YouTube is huge. It's social. It's shared. It's very easy to share YouTube videos. Google loves to rank it. It converts better. SlideShare, now owned by LinkedIn. But don't forget Google+. If for no other reason than SEO, Google doesn't have access to Facebook data. Google doesn't like that. Google doesn't like it when people don't give it data. And in Google's mind, of course, right, all the world's data should be free to it. So Google can then take all the world's data for free, reorganize and represent it, and then charge you for it via AdWords. So they don't like it when people don't share data. Facebook's not sharing data with Google. So Google has created its own network. Now, we are seeing more and more that people who are engaging in Google Plus appropriately are seeing significant boosts in their search engine rankings. So think through how you can help manage the Google Plus ecosystem, affect your search rankings. In fact, I don't have it in the presentation here, but I'm more than happy to share it. Eric Schmidt, the former executive at Google, he's now given the CEO-ship back to the founders. But before he left, he came right out there and said, we are moving everything at Google toward the Google Plus platform. And the first major sign of that was earlier this year when they merged Google Maps and Places with Google Plus. That's just the beginning of what's to come. If you want to rank on Google Maps now, you have to be in Google Plus. They're forcing people into Google Plus. They're going to move the ratings, the reviews, the Zagat, the other things they're buying. All of those are going through Google Plus. And then expect to see classic Google more and more being driven by what's going on with your Google Plus presence. It's not something you can afford to neglect if search is important to you. we're switching to the next slide now. It's just not moving quickly. Here we go. Let's talk about a few advanced strategies since we have some time, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. One is combining earned, owned, and paid. We've been preaching this for quite some time now, and the good news is other folks are starting to catch up, and we like that. Altimeter Group just came out with a good piece on that. My friend Rebecca Lieb over there. And the bottom line is use all the assets you have. They're better integrated. Upgrade link building. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're going to talk about integrating with other sources of budget like events and social. So let's dive into a couple of these. I'm sorry we're not covering all the material that we'd hope to, but we're going to cover what we can. Consider anytime you get a social media win, promote the heck out of it. All too many social media wins are like the PR wins of yesterday, where you got a great article and then 3 days later the bounce went away. Well, the beauty of things like paid media and pay-per-click and display and retargeting and SEO is you can build muscle behind those earned media wins, so it's the gift that keeps on giving forever and ever. And one of the webinar attendees just shared a link here. George Arden, thank you for sharing it. That is indeed a great article at econsultancy.com. If you look for Facebook likes or Google plus ones, which has the greater correlation with organic search rankings, please do read that article. And we can send a link out to that to anyone who's interested as well. Here's an example of what's not even social media. It's just an example of what happens when you integrate search, in other words, paid search, plus owned media, but this is owned media that actually looks a little bit like earned media, where CFO Magazine allows you to do white paper programs, and you can use your own paid search to drive people in there. You can even SEO to make sure this ranks and that you get qualified traffic as opposed to the junky traffic that typically comes in on most of those lead generation programs. Let's talk about upgrading engagement. One of the challenges that we have in the link building world is that most link builders out there are like those people trolling the bar, basically starting at one end of it and just talking to everyone in succession with the same pickup lines down at the bottom of the pyramid and trying to get links. And a couple things with that. First, it usually doesn't work. Secondly, it hurts your brand when your SEO firm does that for you. Thirdly, it now can hurt you in Google. With the latest algo updates at Penguin, the Penguin algo update, Google does not like spammy looking links and ones that look like they were built late at night in a bar. Google wants high-quality links that are daylight coffee shop links that have good conversations with real people doing real things together and not some kind of smarmy late-night short convo. The challenge is most PR firms and most social media folks are up here at the little pinnacle where they have 50 journalists or 50 TechCrunch bloggers, and that's all they're talking to. And again, they're not even asking for a phone number, but they're up there talking so far away from sales. And one of the key things to integrate search behind social is the people doing social need to move further down the pyramid, and the people doing SEO link building need to move further up the pyramid, and they need to have a handshake in the middle, and they need to coordinate what they're doing and work together and build relationships. And really, it's that fat middle of the pyramid that truly magnifies and extends your social reach in a lot of cases. Certainly a Michael Arrington on TechCrunch or an Ariane Huffington on the Huffington Post, it's great to get them tweeting about you or talking about it. In fact, one of our clients just had the editor-in-chief of ZDNet, Larry Dignan. He went out there with a tweet complimenting one of our clients on the integrated social search SEO thing they're doing. That's a huge win if you can get it, but you don't want to count on those. Those are kind of like the big, long passes in football. You also want a ground game. You want to make sure you're getting folks that are highly likely to respond in the way you want, and that's going to be here in the middle of the pyramid. The folks who are active in social media because it's their passion, but it's not their job. It's the thing they do because they're passionate about doll collecting or fantasy football or enterprise software or whatever floats their boat. And they may run a blog, they may not run a blog. If they run a blog, heck, they'd be happy if they made $20 a month in Google AdWords. You give them a T-shirt, they're your friend for life. I mean, some of these things in the middle that a lot of folks don't reach down to really have great links and still a good force multiplier approach. Because a lot of the folks at the top of the pyramid, they consume their data from the level below it. Very few folks are truly original scientists. They look for stuff that hasn't been properly promoted. They grab it, they personalize it, they rebrand it, and because they have a distribution platform, they promote that. One of the things I want to talk about, too, as an advanced strategy is looking at other people's budgets. One of the only other budgets growing out there in the B2B world, much more slowly than digital, but it is growing, is the event budget. Now, when you think of an event, what is an event? An event is social media. An event is social. And the earliest word of mouth and social media things out there were like the Renaissance fairs or the bazaars or places where or the souk or the marketplace. People would go and they would talk and they would communicate and they would interact. Physical and virtual events are by nature social. They have a huge search volume. They have huge amounts of Twitter and other social chatter around them. There's a great opportunity to go get events. And a lot of times nobody's doing it. And so, or not many people are doing it. You can get that traffic very cost effectively, very spiky in terms of its seasonality. The traffic goes up, the traffic goes down after the event, but there is a lot of traffic around it. This was for one of the largest events in Atlanta in the digital space, the Digital Summit. There's another big one going on, Digital East, tomorrow in D.C. If you're in the neighborhood, please come visit me there. Think about what are you going to do to stay atop the Twitter stream. You can do a promoted tweet there. If you're going to go exhibit at something, what's your digital strategy? If you're exhibiting at something, you're already doing something social. It's just, is your social media team fully engaged? If your social media team's engaged, is your search team also engaged? Are they doing paid media around the event? Let's talk about Oracle Open World. Large B2B event, roughly 50,000 people have converged on San Francisco in the Moscone Center today, tomorrow, and the day after for one of the largest user conferences on the face of the earth, Oracle Open World. This show, in the month before the show, had hundreds of thousands of searches around it. Now, I did a search this morning, and where are the advertisers? Now, one of the interesting things there is one person is advertising. It's Google for free. They know it's good traffic, and they also know that since no one else is going to take it, they're going to harvest that traffic for themselves with free AdWords for YouTube. So it's kind of interesting. Let's see what happens when we go and look at YouTube. What happens when I'm looking for Oracle Open World, this giant conference with a massive Twitter stream? Well, we get caught in the IBM cloud when we're trying to do some Oracle stuff. Okay, wow, look at that. Oracle Open World 2012 on YouTube. As of this morning, there is a couple sponsored things which you could get around an event. There's paid search infusing social and guaranteeing that your videos get found. Or if you know how to do your social properly, you can appear at the top of the earned media video SEO YouTube stream with your own thing. Now, this happens at full disclosure. This is one of our clients that do an integrated campaign around Oracle Open World where you can win great prizes from Apple, Starbucks, a bunch of other folks by tweeting a message that you either find on their contest page or their taxi topper page. And so one of the neat things they're doing is they are inserting a whole bunch of not spammy but somewhat cheeky messages into the ongoing social media Twitter stream. And they're using paid search, video SEO, and social media working together to participate much more broadly in the social media dialogue at Oracle Open World. The contest that they've done is actually unique enough that now they already have a bunch of links to their website as well from places like ZDNet. I would love to get links from ZDNet as an SEO, right? That's a high trust rank site that Google likes. If you do your social properly and you're thinking of that from stage one, you can work that all the way through. I'm not going to talk about a shameless plug slide. You can get a copy of the video or the slides if you want. And let's just go now to Q&A and see if we have time. We have time for a question or two.
Yeah, I think so. It's 12:55, so this is supposed to end at 1. So if any of you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat box, and we will get to them as they are asked. Again, while y'all are getting in your questions, sorry about the technical issues. Whenever we first got started, that's frustrating and, quite frankly, a little embarrassing. But, you know, it happens. Technology's great when it works, right?
Okay, any questions? We lost some of the people on the webinar from the technical issues. We're down to low trouble.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't look like anybody has any questions, so I guess maybe that means that you did a really good job explaining things.
Or that you're going to come back and hear another webinar from us again.
Yeah, I prefer to be a sunshine helper. Okay, here we go. What can a company using all social media platforms do to increase communication?
And that's a good question. I guess the first question I have to that is it's sometimes better to be deep than narrow and thin. So if there's already a communication frequency issue, you may want to go deeper on platforms rather than a mile wide and an inch deep. So you may not want to be on all platforms. If you're B2B, you may not want to start with Facebook, or you may want to start with the Quora part of Facebook. If you're B2C, you may not want to be on all platforms. You may not want to spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. So at the first level, what happens with communications is a function of time and dollars. And if those are already in short supply, sometimes actually pulling back can get you a lot more focused and get you more communications. The other thing you can do to increase communications is make sure all those platforms are linked. And so when you set off a daisy chain with one platform, it gets communicated and resonates to the other. Now, sometimes that doesn't work so well because, the Twitter messages don't translate terribly well to Facebook, where people are looking for a little bit more content or something that has more images. But you can automate some of your platform work, so you don't have to do as much original communication work in each of them. You could tie your Facebook to your Google Plus, for instance, and there are tools out there that will allow you, when you put something on Facebook, automatically repost it to Google Plus as well. It's always better if you change it around just a little bit so you have some unique content there. Let's see. And
to kind of further answer your question, because I handle the social for Apogee, I try to tailor my message a little bit differently depending on which network I'm on. Obviously, with us being B2B, LinkedIn and Twitter are far better for us than, say, Facebook, but we still have a Facebook presence because it is important. We have a Google Plus, we have a Pinterest, where we share memes and infographics and that sort of thing. But on Facebook, Facebook and LinkedIn, I try to generate conversation, whereas with Twitter, it's more me just trying to provide information. So I think that probably is also important, is kind of tailoring your message to your audience.
And George, thanks for forwarding this as well. George from the participant list forwarded. I believe, is this the Is this the IBM guide that they did for CMOs, or is this actually the CMO one? At CMO.com, they've got the 2012 CMO's Guide to the Social Landscape, which is sort of a high level how to figure out what social media network is right for you to focus on. So George is saying that's actually not the big one that IBM recently did, which is a survey of CMOs. This is just a pure play CMO magazine one as well. Another question, what are the best websites to stay on top of SEO, PPC, and social? I'm a big fan of staying close to HubSpot. I mean, they're just, some of their content is a little bit amateurish in my mind, but most of it is solid, and they are just a content generation machine. If you're primarily B2B, Marketo is a good place to go. And then if you are just more broadly, search and social, I think you're going to get a lot more goodness out of the search side than you will out of the social website. So I'm fans of Search Engine Watch and Search Engine Land. If you go to a search conference these days, like Search Engine Strategies or Search Marketing Expo, fully 40 to 60% of the sessions are social. But they're social from the perspective of a search marketer, which means they involve things like math and data and measurement and all those other kinds of things that you'll get a little bit less of on the PR side of the fence. Not that you won't get it. You'll just you'll get a very different perspective on how do I know if this is working, and how do I, if I'm doing it once, how do I hit 20% more and have it be worth 2 times as much? And then another posting, and she did it to, thanks for sharing with everyone, Brenda, on that. Some of the platforms do know if you're posting automatically, and not all platforms give preference, but some do. So if you are using automated posting tools that automatically log in, you're going to have a little tougher time getting past the Facebook EdgeRank algorithms and some of the others with the auto post. And the same with LinkedIn. LinkedIn does some of that too. LinkedIn in particular doesn't like being people's second fiddle. They're now really wanting you to push it. Now, one of the things that helps with that too is if you have you can have multiple browser tabs open at once or something along those lines. There are some tools out there. One of the nice things, if you have one of the more pricey tools like a Radian 6 and you're pushing content out, you can set it up to the right form factor for each of those when you're doing your push. But you can also just do that with a spreadsheet and a cut and paste. But it's more efficient to do it all at once and then do your pushes than to try to remember to do it over the course of the day. But we are past our time. I appreciate everyone bearing with us for through our technical difficulties and hanging through. Please give us feedback. If you didn't like what you heard, throw a virtual tomato my way. If you agree, let me know as well. And thank you all for participating.
Yes, thank you. And we did record this, so we'll have our video editing guru edit out the technical difficulties at the beginning, and then we will get this emailed out to you guys in the next couple of days. That way, if you want to go back and look at the recording and share it, what have you, feel free to do so. So keep an eye on your inbox for that.
Thanks again.